Tools of the trade. Every trade has its tools. Whether you're an electrician, a plumber, iron worker, mechanic, they all have specialized tools. And even a quarter scale racer has its own tool set. So let's dive in and we'll discuss the tools required in order to get your racing program started. I'm Tito, and welcome to Quarter Scale Racing 101. First and foremost, we got to realize that these quarter scale racing machines are entirely built here in the US of A. These are hand built. Every nut and bolt in these cars is primarily ASC. That is, their American standard inches, not millimeter. The only millimeters you'll find in these RC race cars are the engine itself. It's Japanese made, so it uses metric. And in my particular car, which is a TNT, I believe the TNTs, the Dytex, the Sonics, the new LT3s, they all have a motor mount style that actually mounts on the side of the engine. So they use 5mm Allen key in order to set those bolts. All the other cars, I believe, are under mount, and at that point I believe they're using standard SAE. So with that said, let's dive into it. First tool I recommend you have is a 3/8" nut driver. This nut driver I use to screw on and screw off the lug bolts, pardon me, the lug nuts that hold on to my tires, my wheels. The threads on those particular screws are 1024. That's different than standard 1032 that's found throughout the rest of my TNT car. Your car might be a little different, so check with your manufacturer. But on a TNT and an LT3, you should have 1024 threads on your hubs to mount your tires, different than the 1032s that are used throughout the rest of the car. So that's your nut driver. Along with the nut driver, I do have a small set of 1/4" drive sockets and a small 1/4" socket wrench here. Sometimes I want to put the crank on nuts and bolts with that. In all reality, for the quarter scale race car, you need 2 3/8 wrenches. I got these open end box combos. You need at least 2 3/8, so when you're adjusting your cross links and your steering links, you hold the steering link with one while you're tightening and loosening the jam nuts with the other. So you need 2 3/8 wrenches. I've got this ratcheting 3/8 that I really do like. It does help speed up things when I'm taking off shock towers. Those are 3/8 nuts, and this little speed wrench really does help. I like it. You also need a 7/16 wrench. This one you need primarily when you're taking off the pinion gear. The pinion gear is screwed onto the clutch shaft with a 7/16 size nut. Allen's or hex keys, however you call them in your side of the world, that's these bad boys here. You want to have a nice full set on the small size. This one ranges from 0.50 inches all the way up to 3/8. They'll never use a 3/8, but I can tell you you're going to use that 0.50. You'll use 1/16. You use a 5/64, the 3/32, the 1/8, the 9/64, the 5/32 for sure, and even the 3/16. Maybe the 7/32. You're going to use these. Get yourself a high quality set This is a Bond House. These are American made. They have the rounded end, the ball ends, and I really like these. You want a short set, and these T-handles. These are really nice to have. You don't need a full range of these. I only got the 3/16 and the 5/32. These two are probably going to be the most common for my car, the TNT. It's most likely going to be common for your car. The 5/32 is probably going to be used the most. You're going to use it to hold the shocks. You're going to use it to hold, what else? The shocks, the trailing arm, cross links. You use it for the steering links, spindles, things of that nature. Use it quite often. So this T-handle with the bald end is definitely a luxury that I like to have on hand. T-handles. What else we got in here? You want yourself an X-Acto knife? You can't go wrong having an X-Acto knife. Make sure you got a cap on that thing or a dedicated compartment in your toolbox so you don't reach in there and stab yourself or cut yourself. I've done it. What else? You're going to want an assortment of small pliers. These are small needle nose. Don't have to have, they're a nice little luxury. You definitely want to have some of these flush cut nippers. These are great for trimming down your zip ties. I've got a set of these baby channel locks. These are these are 420. Yeah, 420s. I like these, and I keep these so that I can grip my shock shafts. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would you put channel locks on a shock shaft? Well, I also keep a strip. I also keep a strip of leather. I double this up, quadruple it, wrap it around my shock shaft, and then put my channel locks on it, and that really does work. I understand there's specific shock shaft holders, and I'm sure they work great. I'm just old school, and I don't believe in them. Oh, you're going to want a couple screwdrivers. I got a really big flat blade screwdriver here. This I use for the D-Zeus buttons for holding the body. If you haven't seen a D-Zeus, neither had I till I got into quarter scale racing. Not all quarter scale cars use the D-Zeus button style fasteners for the body. Some still use the classic body posts, but the cars that do, they use this really wide flathead. There's actually a purpose-built shorty screwdriver for those D-Zeus fasteners, and these D-Zeus fasteners are actually from the real. These D-Zeus fasteners are actually from the real-world racing scene, so you can find them readily on eBay or any of the big boy racing websites. What else do you got here? Can't go wrong with having a pair of scissors for cutting and trimming. I use it, you know, for various reasons. This little bad boy here, I got a little stubby. It really restricts how much torque I can put down on it. And what this is the spark plug socket. And it is a 5/8 inch spark plug. You're going to use it on your engine, obviously. I like the short handle. It really does restrict how much torque I can put on those little aluminum head. So I'm always safe and not stripping them out. Ooh, I have a hammer. I know what you're thinking. Why do you have a hammer in an RC car? Well, I've learned the hard way. I hit a curb on one of the tracks, boulder. It's got a hard concrete. It ended up bending the hinge pin. So I actually had to use a hammer and a drift pin to get the hinge pin out. The air, which is milled out of aluminum, actually survived, which is great because those things are like 25, 30 bucks. The hinge pin, on the other hand, got bent and I actually had to hammer it out. Remember how I told you there was very few millimeter screws and bolts on these cars? There's few of them, very few of them. The other one I had forgotten to mention was the 10 millimeter. I've got this little 10 millimeter here. It is used on my TNT. I'm not sure about any of the other ones, but the front spindles, for some reason, those shoulder bolts that hold on that front spindle are metric. So on mine, it uses a 10 millimeter. That's the only spot that 10 millimeter is used on the whole car. The front spindle bolts.